All right, let's get this started. Okay.
Like right now.
Hello. Hello.
Please no.
Hello.
Ta-da. All right. So this is our
Makoy.
cast for today. Do you want to just a quick introduction, just names today from
Oh, the Connor. Sorry.
what?
It's gonna die. Oh no. Heal it.
Are you guys playing Maple Story right now? Hello?
No, I wouldn't dare, dude.
All right. Beck, you want to start off?
I have dailies.
Let's
Okay.
say hi.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Beck. My
So-
Twitch is Beck. That's it.
Beck with a Z.
Yeah.
Actually, everyone here was in the last podcast except for Toonzy right here. Toonz, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Aranor. Tunes, Shade on review. I used to stream a lot, not so much anymore, but
You are very quiet, sir.
Shade. Oh really?
Hold on, let me turn you up. I need to. 1 second.
Turn up.
I think you turned yourself down, and now it's too quiet.
Oh,
All right, I'll tell you. Don't touch you. I'll put you at 200. All right.
Oh god.
All right, you're fine. All right.
Cool.
So that is Toonz. Everyone else you should know because they were here last time. Yeah, let's get started. So, the Maple Memo. Does everyone have that up?
Yes.
I'm gonna bring it on the screen.
I got it right
Okay,
here,
so
dude.
addressing recent changes and content closure. So in the first paragraph, they drop the bomb. Decision to remove Singapore area maps and content. Now,
Hold it.
a lot of people are upset about that. I don't think anyone wanted that, but they decided to do it anyway. So there's that. There's a big wall of text. I love Dennis. I love Savage Ace. But I'm gonna be honest.
Here comes the
A
butt.
lot of this is pretty bullshit. I'm just gonna be straight up. It's pretty bullshit. So if we scroll all the way down to the final paragraph, they gave like the reasons why the recent closure of blah blah, Mr. Lee's, Captain Varga, Singapore. Gonna focus mainly on Singapore for now. So the reasons they gave were that the content was outdated, it conflicts with upcoming content, and difficult to maintain from a technical standpoint, or provide too much opportunity for abuse with illicit activity. So that was what they said. That's the reason why they closed all of this content. So me personally, I strongly disagree with all of those reasons. So how about you guys?
To start with, the provide too much opportunity for abuse of illicit activity is not a good reason to remove it because that's basically just directed at the hackers, I feel like. And like,
So-
if you step through any server and you go to any of the Malaysia maps, there's at least like one hacker in every map.
Mm.
And then if you take away the maps, they're just going to go somewhere else. It doesn't make a difference to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yep.
So
Yeah, the only thing you can think of is maybe botting, but botting is probably most prevalent in bye-bye, and that's still around, so that doesn't make sense either.
I mean, it's not just
Yeah.
exclusive to that area that they removed. Like, removing the area does not solve the problem. So,
Yeah.
It also just
the
hurts
hackers
legitimate
move on.
players.
I feel like they know about that though. Like I don't think they actually thought it would fix botting. I think it just wanted to find reasons.
the
'Cause
blame it
ultimately, I
on
think we
botters.
all kind of agree that like they got rid of it because of the badge. Right? I mean, that's
I think
Yeah.
most people came to the logical
Yeah.
conclusion because the only area they removed was Singapore. What was the only thing unique to Singapore? It was that quest line, right? So I think most people have come to the logical conclusion that the reason that they removed the entire area was just to remove that quest line. So that
What about
Which
my
makes
Krexel
you-
pauldrons, guys?
so it begs the
makes you
What's
question:
the
One
next
like,
outdated
area.
content to go?
why remove the entire area that legit players enjoy and well, it's one of the most popular farming maps? Why would you remove the entire area when you can just remove the quest line, right?
I got a theory, okay? You want to hear it?
Go for
Yeah,
it.
sure.
Right. There's three main ways that people meso farm, right? There's like the AFK half teleporting and bye-bye station.
Mhm.
There's a more kind of there's like semi AFK in the ghost ship, but more like active farming in MP3. And that was the best rates kind of for suiciding. And then there's the teleporting around Ulu Estate, and then you be past 170, and then you get free pets. Which one did they remove? The one with the highest rates and the one with the free pets. And they left the one with the in-between rates and where you have to buy pets.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's a interesting conspiracy theory, but I don't think
Yeah.
that
I don't think-
they're
Oh, sorry. Did everyone have their tinfoil hats on? I'm sorry, I didn't.
I don't think their reasoning goes that deep. I think it's simply because of the badge, and that the badge, because it can have potential, is better than the Black Mage badge, which is like the only unique, motivation to kill the Black Mage outside of Genesis
To
weapon.
disprove that whole like pet thing, I think it's better that more people are farming with pets because they can get skills, right? So I think that's a long-term kind of.
Although
kind
that
of
Yeah,
does,
but if
investment
they
instead of getting free
suicide
pets.
farming, you don't really go long term though, right?
For a lot of people, yeah, because they don't get far enough to not have to do suicide farming in like 3 months. Because auto move and all that stuff, it's drastic increases in your rates.
I mean, I was doing suicide farming just because I don't have my Kana up to 225 yet, and it's just easy.
Mm.
It's the reason it's easy.
Yep.
However, during the Q&A, Savage Ace said that he said like pretty much a definite yes that Sengoku High will be back.
Mhm.
Right? I don't know if you guys heard that.
I did hear that.
Which is a better badge than the badge that they removed.
Mhm.
So that
I-
contradicts, right?
The problem is I can see them removing the badge from the shop.
I agree.
Oh,
Yeah,
their exact
that's
wording was
immediately what I
Sengoku
thought.
High.
Like
You have to
I
be
honestly
back.
would
They
not
just
be
removed the
surprised if
badge.
they did do that.
Yeah, that's
because
true. That's
of
true.
like what has just happened and what we have come to like as a logical conclusion. If they're trying to phase out badges, then it would not be outside the realm of possibility of them removing the badge from the shop.
Yeah, because obviously it still has the titles, the totems, etc.
Right.
Not that they're great, but
Yeah, Aru was
from a
saying.
Nexon
like,
perspective, like that's probably what they see the event being for those items.
Yeah. Yeah, Aru, like, didn't he go on like a 5-minute thing where it's like you don't need to actually have a badge to clear because KMS does it?
Yes, they did mention that like they
Sure.
briefly touched on like GMS players were I don't want to say too strong. I can't remember the exact wording, but they said if KMS can clear this content without these things, then you should be able to too. That was basically the TLDR of it. So I don't
I
think
mean, that's
that's
not wrong, but
I guess.
I mean,
but
it's
I
not
don't
incorrect,
think-
right? But nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, I think the problem there though is that obviously now if they remove it, you're gonna have some people that do have it, some people that don't have it. So then there's just like a disparity that those people just can never make up.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it was like an
down
all or
one item.
nothing situation, that's a different story. But the fact that some people are gonna have it and others won't is where problem lies. I think with a change like this.
Yes, I agree.
Sure, but I think people who start now and like there's a bunch of events always. There's Terra Burning coming. People who start new will always have access to things that people who were already in the game didn't have access to when they started.
No, but what XToonz was saying is that new
No, I
players
know,
that start
but-
now will
yeah.
just not have a potable badge anymore. They
Sure,
just-
but if you compare like a level 200 person now between us back then with a potable badge, the people that are level 200 now are still stronger than we were then.
So power creep, basically.
So you're talking about early game, like leveling up.
Yeah, sure. And like by the time you get to the end game, there's going to be like new other power creep things that I think are going to make that difference minor, very minor. Yeah, there's a bunch of people who start now too who won't have, maybe will never have the Wondroid heart, right?
I'm pretty confident
with
they're gonna bring
it's-
that one back. They seem to
you,
like that
you never
event
know if
very
like,
much.
there's going to be like a season 3, you know? Because they
Yeah, I
they
hope,
showed that-
but
Yeah.
or like
you
the
just have to
totems,
wait.
right? Like the Dark Lords of Darkness totems. It's not announced now. I don't think it's gonna come. You probably get a lot of questions in chat, like, "Is it gonna come back?" Like, what do you tell people? I don't think so.
I mean,
Don't
here's a
Didn't
mention
they
it.
say in the
question, do you-
podcast like people, because people were spamming the chat with Dark Lords, and they were like, "Yeah, like
Everyone needs it, dude.
we might bring it
I mean,
back."
here's a question though:
Say
do you
it.
think they're going to remove totems?
I don't think
Does
they'll.
KMS not have them?
Does KMS have totems?
No, they don't.
They don't.
They don't. I don't think
Yep.
they'll
Remove 'em.
remove existing items. I think
They're gone.
that's something that they try not to do. But I could see them like discontinuing like the release of events that give them, you know.
Yeah. hmm
Hmm.
Keep like U Garden and what is it, Afterlands?
I guess
I
there
feel
is
like
the U Gardens
they
on-
won't get rid of things from like shops, because shops already, it's really easy to program, and there's not really much technical difficulty in maintaining them. But like things like Afterlands or like U Garden, I could see them going away. Because like if you want to add a shop item, it's literally just adding it to a list. It's not going to cause any
Have you
problems.
checked the spelling of the Legion store items? I think it's pretty difficult. Doesn't seem all that easy, dude.
Yeah, I think the only thing I could think of that would
Yeah,
prevent them
try.
would be Frenzy Totem more than anything. I think the other things they can reason with, I think Frenzy is where it becomes questionable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Frenzy's a big moneymaker for them. So, yeah, I can't see them like getting rid of totems. No. To answer your question. So the reason why I invited all the reboot streamers that were available was because with the announcement of the Singapore removal, everyone freaked out and just assumed that they were removing Malaysia as well, along with Singapore, like 5 or 10 minutes after the initial, like after the memo went up. Awi confirmed in the official Discord that Malaysia was staying. So, to all of the players
For now.
to all the players that were farming at Singapore or Ulu City, I got a lot of questions like, what do I do now? What's the meso farming meta? Honestly, you because you're out leveled for Bye Bye Station, you just have to remake Ikana, get to 150 again, and then farm it Bye Bye. That's probably the best thing that you could do if you're not ready to farm at endgame maps yet.
That's also a
I
problem
don't-
for
I
newer
don't advise
players.
people to do that, though.
How so, Jeff?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of unintuitive that you have to keep suiciding to progress in a
Yeah.
game. You
Mm.
have to stay the same level. Like, I still don't understand that change.
I think it's-
I can kind of understand it because they don't want people, say like at 5th job, to be able to farm it Bye Bye Station still. You know, that's why they nerfed it, because that's
Sure.
just how the game's supposed to be. Like, imagine there was like a really high density KMS map. So like, I don't know, like I can't think of a good example. Like maybe like something in Ludi or something that gave like insane meso rates that you could farm at level 200.
Golem
That would be kind
Forest.
of broken. It just so happens that Bye Bye Station is like the best map to farm in. So that's just the meta right now. That's just, if you
I think
want
that's
to
just
make
because
the most
the-
efficient rates, that's where you go.
The mobs are like weak, right? Because they don't inherently give more messes. It's just the HP to mess
Yeah,
rate
they have
is,
no
like,
HP.
really high.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like, is there another map that we haven't fully considered that people in like their 180s can kind of go to? Because there are some maps in Ludi that are completely undiscovered.
Yeah,
No, I
apparently
don't
Ludi
think there's-
drops multiple bags as well.
you
Someone
think?
said in my chat, there's a bunch of maps where double bags drop.
But the thing is, because the HP scaling affects those maps, you need to be a lot stronger
yeah,
Yeah,
to do those.
yeah.
that's the main issue. Is the non-KMS content doesn't get scaled the same.
I mean, how strong can you get realistically though if you get like the Necro gear with good flames on it and get like 6% stat epic potential? That can get you like twice as strong as nothing on your gear, right?
Definitely.
In the beginning, you can get a lot stronger very quickly.
Like, I suppose if you invested in that character, but you would still have to stay within level range, which
Yeah,
goes
true.
back to the same problem. I think
There's
a
also-
big issue now, just going back to Bye Bye, is you can't get free pets from Hard Hiller anymore. So you have
Yeah.
to buy pets. Unless you do normal Hiller every day and pray for a box. But the drop rate from normal Hiller is pretty abysmal. Pretty
It's
abysmal.
horrible, yeah.
So,
It's also
Actually
worse to
got one 2
do
days ago.
normal Hilla because you gain ambition EXP every time you kill it. So it takes longer to suicide for each kill that you do.
God, that's so
That's
counter.
Oh my God,
Which
that's
also
something.
leads back to
I didn't even
suiciding because
consider
it's stupid.
yeah.
Like
I agree.
my Kana has level 12 ambition, but it has like all the boss accessories. But it does take me like one extra suicide now because it's level 12 ambition,
Mm.
which is so dumb, right? Like
Yeah.
you have to consider suicide rates
Yeah.
to actually make Meso.
Yeah. So
Well, I find the
oh, go for
the
it.
suicide meta to be very bad in terms of game design. Anyway, like I know with
Yeah.
other games they offer systems where you can just disable XP gain in general.
Mhm.
Obviously that's something Nexon would probably never add because that's like something custom, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But,
Way too convenient.
just-
Yeah.
yeah, but I think just the concept of suiciding is very bad.
Yeah.
Well, it's two
definitely.
things, right? So first of all, is that the reduced rates when you over level, that's very clearly has as a goal to keep moving people along forward in the content, so people don't get stuck and like bottleneck in certain
Mhm.
maps, and that it gets like super overcrowded. You want to keep people like moving forward onto higher level maps. And on the other end, people figured out that if you don't do that, but if you do get stuck, that you can make smart use of the game mechanics and stay on the upper echelon with minimal rates. And that's why we're kind of, I mean, that's where the meta always forms. It's like at the edge between abusing the game mechanics and making smart use of the game mechanics, right? That's where it was before. That's where people are at level 230. We're still like at bye-bye station, just like putting down domain and like full clearing, like, you know, and then getting like 1.2 bill or something per hour. Like,
Right.
these are things apparently that are not considered when they're implementing things in the game. And then as the players, we figure this shit out. And then it's like, oh, I said the S word. And then, and then we're like, oh, that's actually something that they have to look at, because Nexon doesn't test anything. You know, they just implement stuff. Even in KMS, like they have Tespia, and then they literally roll it out like 4 days later, and they change all of the skills. Like, how did they have time to test that all?
Yeah.
I feel like this is not gonna be a popular opinion, but if they're gonna do this, they should just remove all the non-KMS maps, because the root of the problem would be the HP to meso scaling, right? So if they remove that, but like decrease the scaling for the other maps, it would be a little bit more convenient for most people, because suicide method is not intuitive, and I feel like at a certain point they're gonna realize that.
All right. I
And
have
they're gonna-
a,
But can they not
counter
just
question to
copy
you.
paste the
Knox.
multiplier?
Okay, so if they do what you said, what would the early game meso farming meta be if there's no more bye-bye station?
See, that's the
Uninstall.
thing. I don't think they should just like blindly remove all that stuff, but they should at least adjust that whole area between like 170 and what is it, like 195
That
for the
sounds
HP
like a lot
scaling.
of work, and it also sounds like something that
Yeah.
they would never do.
Exactly, that's the thing. Like I don't think they'll do it, but I think if they actually want to solve the problem, it's something that they should consider.
I
Because
feel
they
like
can't
if
just
they,
remove everything, because then all the early game players are stuck forever.
So
but if
so
they
what
do that, Reboot's gonna die.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Like, I think
Yeah.
that's
So-
not like, it's just a consequence of removing Malaysia. If you remove the last remaining viable spot that people know of, there's really no way to progress in the beginning. I mean, you can progress really slow, but you're never gonna get to like, let's say, 50k stat if you really want to aim for that in a reasonable amount of time. And reasonable is like kind
The
of
word
an
reasonable is
understatement.
key there.
Reasonable is talking like 3 years time. Like that's already a huge time investment in the game, and you're not going to get that
Yeah.
without bye-bye station.
And 3 years, that's with like playing at least 20 hours a week too. It's a insane time investment at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also you also can't get 50k stat without a badge. Like you're missing 30% of your
I
stat.
don't know, dude. I have 870k stat.
Okay.
So I was talking. So I asked a similar question to Kobe last during the first podcast. I asked him, how do early game players, or how do players in Reboot meso farm in KMS? And he said they boss and they make about 300 to 400 mil per hour. I was like, that sounds really high. And I asked him again to clarify, and he said that was only for like end game players that can solo like CRA and hard mag. And obviously early game players can't do that. So like I
Wait, per
was
hour?
trying to figure out like how much you actually make out of like the bosses that you could do at low levels of funding. So if I went on like a Legion mural right now, I would probably be able to do like normal Rudibus, normal Zakum, maybe Horntail, and maybe easy Arc. If that's like even that's a kind of a stretch. You need like a decent amount of funding.
Normal
for that.
Hilla.
All those things are only
Oh,
getting
Heller
like
as well.
1 to 2 mil.
Like total, probably you make maybe like 30 or 40 mil from those bosses.
40,
and
yeah,
that's
about 40.
every day. So I
And
mean,
that's
I
gonna
guess
take you
you
more
could
than an
do
hour.
that technically on 46 characters, but I mean, that sounds very
I can't wait to make
inefficient
the
compared to
investment.
what we are able to do right now, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
here's what I think the healthiest fix would be, but I think it's a lot of work for next, and I don't see it happening. And that would be remove KMS maps, but adjust the scaling of mobs health-wise and meso-wise from 160 to the 210-ish area, so that enables you to, as you're leveling, you're gaining enough to keep going. Which then you wouldn't need something like bye-bye. You can literally just progress through training your way up
I
instead.
think you already do though.
That's exactly what I'm
know.
saying.
Well, I think you
Yeah.
hit a wall around the 180 area where if you don't go back and start farming, you progress at such a slow rate that it's not worth doing.
Yeah.
I agree.
I
mean,
hear
let me
that a
put it
lot,
this way.
but
I
I
have-
always have the
I have-
example behind me. My mom also plays. She's level 250 on her bishop. She never had a Kana. She never really farmed, but she's 250 with decent gear on her bishop. Like, it's possible, but you have to be patient.
How long did it take
She started
from start
in
to?
January of last year. And Bishop
mean-
is like arguably one of the worst mobbers without Kishin. Like the rates are pretty horrible.
How did she meso farm? Did she do
Sorry.
the suicide method?
Not
as well?
at all. Just she participated in events. She makes sure that she loots things. She saves up money, and then whenever there's an event, she spends it during the event, and I help her out on like what cubes to buy, what to enhance, all of that shit. But she just saves and doesn't spend it on dumb things. What I see a lot of people do is they try to upgrade every little thing they get as much as possible, and so much money goes to waste for very small increases, and it's very inefficient. Like, I never mesofarmed either, and I think I'm doing fine for myself as well. I mean, it is possible, but I think a lot of people just want a lot of results very fast, and I do realize that because I have two computers and because I have a lot of time, because I'm doing this basically full time, I have a lot of time on my hands, but it is possible.
Do you have something you wanted to say, Beck, on the removal of non-KMS maps?
Not anything that's already been covered. I feel like the smart option for upgrading is to like do a little bit all at once instead of focusing on one thing and making it really good. But the problem is that once you start progressing towards endgame, it's like just the hurdle for getting from like VJ to Arcana is so hard without having an initial like 100 bill or whatever you're dumping into your Arcana just a farm thing.
Yeah, that's a little
I
brutal.
think it's viable. So VJ maps are pretty bad, but I think rates become like okay at Choo Choo and above. So I think
Yeah.
it's not.
Oh,
too
can we
bad
touch
to
on that,
start.
by the way?
What was that, Scardor?
Because the lanterns in Vanishing Journey don't drop things anymore, so people's node rates are lower now as well.
That is
yeah.
true.
I didn't notice that.
So that was
Yeah,
also
and
a change in
that's,
KMS. That would
I
just
just kind of
import
bring
it.
this up as context because if we look at how KMS does things, I mean, KMS, I think they're trying to do exactly. First of all, they don't have Kishin, so they're trying to do exactly what we've been talking about. You just kind of play naturally and get to a point where you can, go to Arcana, go to Moras, and people are making. They're making half of the rates that we have with Kishin. That's still pretty good. It's like 300, 400 mil an hour, right? In Arcane River, but before they can get to that point, they can upgrade stuff really easily because their Star Force costs are lower, their buff freezer costs are lower, and at a certain point, it's like, yes, we can up the mesa rates for GMS, but can we look at the places where players are sinking money first, right? And I feel like just Star Force costs in general are so expensive that the boss crystals can never compete.
What is that comparison? Do you
So,
have those
so you're comparing like the amount of mesos you get from boss drops to like the Star Force cost, right? Like the
Right.
expected
I mean, like
cost.
it's that boss crystal cost is based off of the KMS rates, and everything in KMS, not cubes, but most things in KMS are slightly cheaper. And in the case of Star Force, it's like 70% cheaper or something like that. So it's a really big difference. Right? If you think about how an early game player goes about progressing, it's like they Star Force first, they get some free occult cubes, and then they get to a point where they hit like 1 mil range, with Golux and other thing. And it's just that initial jump. They need so much more money to actually get anywhere.
True. I think occult cubes do help though. There's a lot of those around now.
Yeah, definitely.
But never in my days those weren't around.
Sure.
All right, so to sum up the removal of KMS maps, non-KMS maps, sorry.
Whoa.
So I don't think it's a good idea unless, so what Toon said, they buff other things, which seems like a lot of, like, all of the KMS maps like get buffed, right? Like that's the only way it could be feasible, but even then it would still be a lot more work for early game players, and I feel like it would be a lot more difficult to catch up if they ever did touch Malaysia specifically. So I think the general consensus is, as it is right now, do not remove Malaysia, right? Without any other changes. Do not remove Malaysia, right?
What about this? If they were to cut meso cost of everything in the game that you have to spend money on, because I think that's a realistic change, changing prices versus changing health and XP and meso drop and all this.
That's true.
Would that smooth out the progression? But obviously, like if we're talking about end game players, like obviously they're going to get like insane amounts of more cubes and stars, but they're already doing that because they play a hell of a lot anyway. And obviously there are people that have been playing for like 2-3 years and they're still not finished or close to finished, which is a long time realistically with the rate of things they're bringing out.
Right.
So would reducing meso of everything in the game by a valid percentage be a viable fix to this? Yeah, it would have to be a decent. I was thinking like
the thing is,
33% at least.
If we're talking about like early game players catching up, then I feel like it would, in a sense, like widen the gap even more. Well, I mean, it would.
I think that.
I guess the progression.
I mean, the curve slopes
does
off, right? The curve slopes off on your progress.
Yeah, I guess it would help. Yes, it would.
Yeah, because I mean, it wouldn't single-handedly solve the problem. But I think this is one of the key things that Nexon needs to take in mind is that they shouldn't balance the game around Kishin. Because if they do, they balance it around a second PC for reboot. Which, yes, if they don't balance it like around Kishin, endgame players will have a good time. But they shouldn't balance the game for endgame players. You know what I mean? Like, not everyone's gonna get their second PC. Not everyone's gonna have the time as we do to progress. So it's like, for example, if they balance it off of like Pocket, right? I mean, if they balance the success rates,
average player,
Pocket, yeah. I mean, like if they do that, everybody else is gonna get screwed. So
that's
I feel like
the
they
main
should balance
problem.
the
Are
idea
you talking
of,
about like lowering the success rates?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like-
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Whoa.
I think you get my point, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's a difficulty with a game. You have to balance it
mind
for
that
the
all-
super hardcore players and for the new players.
Yeah.
That's very tricky
Well,
always.
I don't think you should be balancing a game. Well, so there's two ends of the spectrum, right? You shouldn't be balancing the game around hackers, and you shouldn't be balancing the game around the 1% that play, 15 hours a day. The people that play
Kind
15
of,
hours a day,
though.
they're going to be ahead regardless of the balance, right? Unless there's
Yeah,
like
but they
time-gated things, they're always going to be ahead regardless. So
Right.
you have to kind of focus on that middle, like
Yeah, but
95.
they need to have content to keep working towards, because in general, they are also the people who drive everyone forward.
For sure, but then
Someone
those
who
people would move on
shows-
to gearing other classes and things like that. There are always options to do more.
and frankly, we have a lot of content. Like Black Mage is not clear.
There's a lot to do.
That's
Dude,
there's
there's
a
so
lot.
much content in this game.
It'll be
It's
like a year and a half
ridiculous.
before we get to really finish everything. So I don't think they should worry about endgame players at all for now.
No, because I mean, obviously, like we're 3 years in, and like I said, we're not finished yet. There's no character really that hasn't got something they can do more of. It's kind of that middle of the pack player that needs the bump.
I missed the Maple Story stream yesterday, so I don't know if this got addressed, but wasn't there like an argument that it's just based off the removal of content, that it was just because KMS wanted it done and we didn't actually have a say in anything that's going to happen in the
Right.
future of
I
this
did
game?
ask that question. I asked what was the wording? It was, does the GMS team, or does the next in NA
You have
team
to have a say, right?
have a say in what gets changed in the game? Because it feels like the GMS community does not. It feels like we have no power in what changes in the game, what gets removed. Because if you look at all of the things that were removed recently, so Mr. Lee's, maybe not Captain Varga, but Mr. Lee's in Singapore, like no one wanted those removed. Like maybe a few people wanted Mr. Lee's gone, but majority, I'm talking about the majority, most people didn't want those pieces of content gone, right? And it's like, no matter how much we express our distaste for it getting removed, like it gets removed anyway. Doesn't matter what we say. So I did ask that. His reply was that they do have a say, but I don't know. From what's happened, like especially like even going back to like drop rate nerf, no one wanted that, and it came anyway. So
Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, their wording I found really typical for a corporate environment. I mean, I work for a corporate environment, so like I smell that BS from like a mile away. And their exact wording was like, we're part of the discussion. And what I imagined from that was them sitting at a table, right? And then like, you know,
we were in the meeting.
Presence. Yeah, we were in the meeting. We like brought it up, and the KMS, you know, Wonky was like, no.
Nah.
But
Like
also,
that meme where they get thrown out the window.
yeah, and then also like the thing
at
is,
the end.
even KMS players are unsatisfied, right? Like KMS players apparently haven't heard back from the director since he became the director. So I feel like it's not just GMS is having the communication problem.
Do we
Can I play
know?
devil's advocate a little
Go for it.
Because I kind of feel this is like maybe like a tough analogy, but we're like the kids and they're like the parents. Sometimes they gotta do things that the kids always just want more. We just want more candy. We just want more free time. We just want to watch more TV. And then the parents have to make the tough decisions, right? And be like, well, we're gonna play outside today. We're gonna eat healthy today. You're gonna eat your vegetables, right? And it's always going to be seen as they're against us, they don't listen to us, they don't want. But eventually you grow up and you learn that there are tough decisions that have to be made, even how unpopular it is. And I just feel that Nexon NA is just hardcore cucked financially in their resources and in how many hours they can put in, and they have to make tough calls. Is like, do we keep this game somewhat running and do like minimal damage to our player base, or do we just like go under completely and lose our jobs? It kind of feels like that.
But I think the whole, you know, that sometimes they have to make tough decisions is fine, but it'd be nice to have actual reasoning, not what seemingly comes across as something that's just made up to put on a memo, for example. It doesn't, like, from what they said, you know, for balance, for future content, this kind of thing, that doesn't sound like the actual reason to me. That sounds like something they've just had to put to say something.
Isn't that what they put in the last Maple Memo about the Meso thing as well?
I wish they were more transparent with like the actual reasoning rather than putting all these things.
Blanket statements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I feel like the actual reasoning is literally because they can't afford people to regularly maintain everything. But I feel like they can't say that though.
Yeah.
Because like,
no,
if they say that, then
obviously.
Nexon
then it
stock
sounds
is
like they're
fall.
in financial trouble, and then
Do we know if the development team over in Korea that works on GMS, is that a dedicated GMS team, or is it people that they have working on KMS also that they kind of allocate to swap back and forth? Do we know that that's
exactly sure
how it's set up? Or
I think it was dedicated last time I checked. Like those two women who were on the Maple Fest. I think they're like specifically for GMS.
Because obviously, if I can,
yeah.
If it's a case where they have to allocate developers between the two of them back and forth, then I can understand that. They can't afford to spend time on, you know, specific small GMS things when they've got everything on KMS to work on as well. They'd rather allocate their resources in a better way. That makes more sense.
Right.
But if it's a dedicated team, I don't see why they shouldn't be able to do development work as well as other things.
I could see
the team is.
the work being shared between one team. That makes a lot more sense if that was the case.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Also, there's one thing I want to brought up that it's a little bit technical in detail, but
Ooh.
there was a Reddit post the other day, and they were talking about how like the software design behind MapleStory. At least I brought it up, and it seemed like they're still using waterfall. Which, if you guys didn't know, it's like
Sorry, using what?
a waterfall.
What?
It's like a very old way of developing software, where it's basically the customer, aka like the directors of MapleStory or like the corporate people, they're like, we want it this way, right? We want to hit this target or whatever. Like you should design it in this way, and they don't have any say. So if any technical problems come up when they're actually developing, they can't just go back and be like, this came up, can we like adjust for it? And they have to follow the contract word for word. And I feel like they're starting to do that more than just adapt, because like logically speaking, you would follow the other way, which is like if problems come up, you go back to the client and you're like, this happened, can we change this implementation? It's not actually working. But they can't do that because I feel like they're still stuck on that like 1980s kind of way of writing code. So I think Ace is so inflexible because his contract, like the agreements of the plan, is already laid into place, and he just has to kind of dodge bullets as they come.
Is it, if I understand it correctly, is it like when you have a street and it has like a hole in it, you just kind of cover it with some asphalt and then you just continue instead of redoing the whole street when you have like 15 potholes? Is that
the best analogy that I can do is like, say you want to get a cake, and then instead of describing to the baker what you want and saying like, is that possible? Like, can I have an adult themed, birthday cake or not? But then they're like, oh yeah, sorry, we don't have that kind of shape today. Like in normal cases, you would say, okay, like, can you kind of change it around? Can you do something else? But what Waterfall lets you do is basically like you both sit down at a contract table. You write a very detailed contract predicting everything like 6 months, a year in advance, and then do everything. And you can never talk to the client afterwards because the contract says this, your agreement says, right?
Sorry,
So the code from KMS just follows over to GMS.
Pretty much, yeah. It's like, I don't know. Is there a good analogy for this? Like basically,
yeah, there's some 60 IQ people in the chat who can't follow.
Yeah, let me put it this way. It's like, it's kind of like the syllabus in school. If you have a good professor,
Right.
he might be able to negotiate for you. That would not be Waterfall. But what they're actually doing right now, it's like, what's in the syllabus is exactly what you
100%.
get. Like, there's no curve, there's nothing happening. Like, it doesn't matter if the average is like a 30. It's gonna be a 30. All of you are gonna fail, right? They can't adjust any of the grade cutoffs. Does that make more sense?
Sure. Yeah, and if they do, then they get financially waterboarded, basically, by the waterfall. Look at
Yeah.
that. I tied it back.
Well,
But if we're going on that, then why do you think this was so seemingly sudden from both sides? Like it got mentioned and changed almost instantaneously.
Are you talking about
Rather than-
removal of Singapore?
Yes.
Honestly, what I think happened was that the Korean team was like, we need to make the Black Mage badge relevant somehow. Remove all the ones that are better in GMS, or else there's no incentive to do the Black Mage boss. I think that's
Yeah.
what happened.
That's such bullshit, too, though. You think we're black maging for the medal? What the fuck?
But it's like,
Who cares
like
about
we
the Genesis
talked last
weapon,
time
boys? We
about
got this
how they
medal.
can't remove existing badges because there's no way that they can compensate properly, or fairly to anyone who's actually spent money on their badges in non-reboot servers. So it's like, because they can't remove existing badges, it's like no one's really gonna want Black Mage badge anyway, right? So I think the entire removal of Singapore is very nonsensical.
Actually, saying that's quite interesting, yeah, because the people who are obviously most likely to kill the Black Mage are the ones that are already going to have the badge, so nothing really changes. And the people who now can't get the badge probably won't be able to get to kill Black Mage for a year and a half at least.
Yeah, because they're time gated by Arcane Force anyway, so it's like,
Exactly.
you just did anyone do the
at
maths
least 2
on like
years, I
how
think.
long it takes, like if you were to start at the black at the black patch, how long it's gonna take to get the Arcane Force to actually fight the Black Mage? Like you have to max out every single symbol just to not get damage reduction, and on top of that you need to be max
Assuming-
level. So
No farming, right?
Sphere is not even released yet, right?
yeah,
Yeah, the sphere isn't out yet. And
So
the sphere is the same rate as Vanishing Journey, right?
it's got to be like a year and a half to like 2 years probably to max out
At
think
least
it's-
Sarah from scratch and everything
yeah,
else.
And that's assuming
Should be
you
like-
don't miss dailies ever.
Right. That's every single day you do. You dedicate your life to doing dailies, basically.
Yeah.
But we're forgetting one thing. Because there's going to be new areas that come out.
Mhm.
And there's going to be extra power creep, because there's always
Ah.
extra power creep.
It's true. We're
So
not
maybe
taking
by
into
that
consideration
time,
future
there are
content.
certain things. Yeah, future content will always make things faster.
Do you think they'll ever make a way for players to catch up to people that haven't missed any dailies? Because right now,
So,
the
well, I
only
think
way
the
to catch up is after all the endgame people have hit the cap. That's when you can catch up. Because I
Well,
was behind
I
Arcane Force for a little while, and I caught up.
I
some,
think
but-
the drop nerf did the exact opposite of that. We had a way to catch up all the time if you just wanted to put in the hours, and they kind of took that away. If anything, the symbol rate should have never been changed.
Yeah.
You eliminated any way of farming or catching up by with your own effort.
I think we've like a lot of endgame players have done a lot of tests since, so like just rates and everything. And I think we've concluded that symbols just aren't affected by drop rate whatsoever. That's what, because we looked at like data
Oh,
from
really?
Achievements.
Oof.
So we got like our number of kills, and then there's also an achievement for how many symbols you've obtained. And all the endgame players only like exclusively farm in Arcane River maps, so you can make a pretty accurate representation of how much you farmed versus how many symbols you found. And we found that people with more drop rate don't get more symbols than people with less drop rate. The only thing that affects symbol drop rate are 2x events. So all of your drop rate from gear does not actually affect the symbol drop rate, which I'm not sure if that's a bug or if that's intended, but whatever it is, it's
totally
it's
intended.
bad. Yeah,
I feel like
just-
do you think it's just like it's a small enough percentage that between the kind of the quote unquote IED scaling of drop rate and then the low drop rate
Yeah.
scale, I think just
If you
you're
double
not,
it,
you don't
it's
have
still
enough
the same.
sig figs, so to speak.
Yeah.
No, I think there's enough data at this point because it's been so long since the drop rate nerf and since achievements have been out that there is
How long
like,
has it-
reason
long
enough
have
data
achievements been
to
out?
like be reasonably sure that that's the case.
Okay.
I think achievements are coming up to a year with the winter patch, right?
Right.
A year?
Yeah.
Yeah, like within the next couple of months, I think it'll be a year.
Hmm. Also, I guess I have a very unpopular opinion there, but I don't feel like people should ever be able to catch up. They should be able to close the gap. But typically, what Nexon does is whenever the pack of people seems to like catch up to people who are in the end game, then they start releasing new content, and then end game people can go all over that, and people who aren't quite there yet, they just can't partake in that content until the end game people have kind of like consumed that content and made it like mastered it, and then they bring out new content, they scale down that end game content, and then the pack can start consuming that content. I see that like going on all the time. So now with all of the new
Understandable.
areas and going up to 275, all of the end game players are going to be there until we get all of the Darmur stuff in I always forget the fucking name. What is it called? Grandis. Like until the Grandis stuff comes out, and then all the endgame people are going to move over to Grandis, then everything considering like Varus, Hilla, Black Mage, all of that is going to get nerfed in HP, just like Hard Will and Hard Lucid did now. And then the whole pack is going to start consuming that content all the while. The endgame people, there's always going to be that gap between the people who are able to put in like 40
of
plus
course.
hours a week and the people who can play 20 hours. And I think there
course.
should be. But I think Nexon does an okay job at making people who start out feel like they can one day also play that content. But like when I started, I was like, I'm never gonna get high star Tyrant gear. I'm just never gonna get that. That's not how I'm gonna play the game. So I just decided to stick with like the superior belt and shit. And then I mean, just by playing and because of power creep and because of things happening and because of events and Star Force and all like making more money, like the game is completely different a year and a half after I started playing. The game has just completely changed. All of the rates are different. All of the content is different. The goals of what to reach, the best in slot gear, everything keeps changing. I mean, you know this, Sam. Like, you make a best in slot list, and then like every single
gonna-
patch, like things. Yeah.
Take a comment out of the chat from Alex. He said dedicated people also can't catch up. So say you are
Yeah,
a
that's
dedicated
what I was
player
gonna
that
say.
is willing to put in that many hours.
What do you consider dedicated? How many hours is that?
Well, it depends, like farming.
I have
daily.
a,
Yeah, exactly.
I have a pretty good example. So there's this guy, Sounds Edgy. I don't know if you heard.
Yep.
Mhm.
Take it in, huh?
I
He's
heard that
probably
name.
He's my
strongest Cadena probably.
Mhm.
He's like 40.5k stat. Cadena's a pretty new class. That's more stat than I have right now, but yet he has like 100 less Arcane Force than me. And like I've been playing my Luminous for a lot longer than Cadena's been released, but he's not gonna do like hard will for a while just because of Arcane Force. Like, he's not gonna get the damage, like the 1.5
He has
bonus
40k
for it.
stats, so he's
Yeah. But
But
like
he's Kadena,
the
so he just
bonus,
got like double damage.
But if
That-
we're
that
talking
is
about
true.
like future content like Healer and Black Mage, like
Yeah.
this Cadena is gonna be very behind in terms of
yeah,
And there's like
I have
he's able to farm like however many hours, like 10+ hours a day. I don't know how much he farms,
Yeah.
but even if he did, there's still like no way for him to catch up in Arcane Force because the symbol drop rate is just so abysmal.
This is kind of a crystal ball kind of prediction, but with the grandest updates, I feel like they're not going to make it locked behind the Black Mage because it's just too hard. So do you think they'll make a second kind of symbol system that works in grandest but also adds to Arcane Force? So you can have like a higher base rate of Arcane Force, but you can still kind
Very
of
hard
have
to
a
predict
so.
new
future
progression
content.
system.
Yeah.
Arcane Force
But
and Arcane River is so
can't see.
connected in the name. I don't think so.
I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure the content will probably be like 250 plus though, so maybe you'll have like a branch of like other stuff to do. Yeah, like you won't have to go through the last 3 areas to go there. I think it'll just be like 250 plus area. I don't think, but there's going to be some power creep. I think we all think that, right? There's going to be some power creep. I don't think it's going to be symbols or connect to Arcane Force, but there's going to be some power.
I really hope the Arcane River just ends, so we don't
I was
have
gonna,
to.
do you
No more Arcane
think
Force.
that I was gonna say, do you ever think that they might just remove Arcane Force as a kind of like, this was your power creep to get to the Black Mage and manage to kill him with this extra, boost of damage. We're gonna now take that because you don't need it anymore and move on to a new system.
People will get
Nice.
pissed
I
off.
don't think so.
Unlikely.
No,
Really
thank you.
though?
Unlikely. No, I don't think so.
It's possible. I mean, we had Star Force, and then we had Arcane Force. And then,
Can you
Arcane Power,
imagine
sorry.
you've been doing dailies for like 3 years and then you're done, we're moving it now. I
No,
don't think they're
I
gonna
hope
do
Aaron
that.
means that it's not going to be dependent on Arcane Power anymore. Not that
Right,
we lose
yes.
all of the symbols, right?
Yeah. Wait,
Just
is
to
that what you're
clarify.
talking about? Are you talking about removing symbols altogether, Toons, or
I think initially yes, but it
future
could be
content?
taken in any way. Just that system having something stripped back, I guess, in general. Because obviously it was designed for building up to the Black Mage, and
Right.
now we're not going to need it after he's, been killed. So I guess you can take it in whatever way you want to think of. But do you think they'll strip back Arcane Force as a system to make room for a new system?
I think they'll definitely not make stuff like content and bosses rely on it for extra damage, but I don't think they'll ever remove like the symbols because it is power creep and a lot of damage that people are relying on.
Yep.
And on top of that, you don't know how long it's going to take for people to like realistically be killing the Black Mage. Like we said, people who start now are still going to need it like a year and a half from now at least. So that means that everyone is going to keep it at least for another year and a half. So, and by that time the game's going to be different. So, I don't really know. We're definitely going to have some more power creep, that's for sure, in Grandest. But I have no idea what it could be. I mean, we could speculate, but I don't know if
Yeah,
somebody has
like I said,
a
it's
really
very
good
hard to predict future content because you never know what
Yeah.
player's gonna do.
take on
The
that
good-
word in.
The good news is that I think KMS recognizes this problem. That's why they made the dailies shorter and everything. So I feel like it's
That
not
was a really good change.
exactly. So it wouldn't be totally out of the question for them to realize, maybe several months down the line that, yeah, this is kind of being a problem to our players. Like, can we increase the number of symbols that you get per day, right, from certain?
We get some
dailies?
extra with the alliance things, right?
Yeah.
I don't know whether this is a bad or good idea or not, since it just came to the top of my head. But earlier you said that it's easier to just add things into a shop, so why not add like arcane symbols like the coupons into Legion coin shop or something?
Ooh.
I have 30,000 coins. I wouldn't mind that at all.
I think the only reason I think something like that would be unlikely is because the Legion system is not linked to Arcane River.
Mm.
So it'd be weird for them to add Arcane River content into just like a general shop, you know?
But it's something everyone's going to need at some point.
Of course.
Yeah, it's
I think
like
it'd be good of them to add them into every event shop going forward at like at a reasonable rate where you can actually get a decent amount of them to progress faster.
Yeah, like limited to 5 or something. Oh, I hate when they do that.
Yeah.
Oh, they did
Yeah.
that, right? Didn't they give us like 100 symbols in total over the summer?
Yeah, like that. Yeah, I love that, dude.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
really
so that
good.
was good.
From the shop.
Don't give me
The-
like
the-
5 or
Ooh.
10. Like, oh,
good.
Yeah, like the 20 per week thing was good. Like that's what I'm saying. If they do that for every event going forward or every event shop going forward, I think
That's true.
would be a step in the right direction.
Right.
mm-hmm.
Adding symbols to events. Yep. I agree with that.
Yeah, to event stores.
Event
yeah.
shops. Right.
And not
And
just
maybe
like one
also
or
to
two.
the
like
fairy
every-
bros.
Ooh, yeah. Fairy bros.
Because the fairy bros, they only implemented like oh shit, I forgot to redeem it today. They only implemented like the first 21 days, right? In the thing.
I think it's unlikely
going
that
on
they add them to the last few days.
Yeah.
Especially with this late notice. So
Isn't
But
this
it would
Fairy
be-
Bros
it'd be a
just
step
like
in the
a
right
new
direction, I
attendance? It's like attendance doesn't
Kind of,
last
yeah,
for a whole month anyway.
right.
sure. Yes, bird.
Okay. Do we have anything else we want to talk about regarding the removal of content or anything else?
Do we
Please don't
think that
remove
there's I was gonna say that was where I was going. What else do you think they may possibly change or remove?
They
I
said
think in the memo
yesterday,
they said Galax is okay.
They said yesterday on the live stream that they confirmed that they don't want to be a carbon copy of KMS, which means
Yep.
with that statement that all of the current non-KMS content and classes and everything are safe for now. Are they ever gonna touch them in the future? If Daddy Korea says so, I guess.
Do we agree
Hopefully
by the way
not,
with
but
that?
I mean,
I think
That
Daddy Korea is
they-
going to introduce Galax into KMS.
I
Do
thought
we
about
agree
that
that they-
actually.
I feel like it's
carbon
past
copy.
the point for them to do that.
I think the only issue, I don't think they'll do it because they only just added the Hilla pendants, right?
right.
Which are the best in slots over in KMS
that's
now.
true.
So I can't see them adding Galax just because of that one thing that they're kind
Right.
of filled that slot now.
Yeah.
They want
I
that
do
boss
want-
set to be.
What
They
does
want
that
that hard
replace
boss
for
set to be
them?
the set.
Hmm.
Dominator pendant and
Dominator.
something, I think.
I think
Right?
Dominator Pendant is currently best in slot in Korea. I think.
Yeah.
CHT?
Yeah.
Is it
I think it
CHT?
might
Wait,
be
Rising
CHT.
Sun, I think. Rising
So
Sun.
with-
really?
Oh my god, they're like 8 years
I
behind.
think there's like a
What the-
crafted pendant or something that they use.
Yeah, it's
Oh, I've
Rising
seen that
Sun
for
pendant.
gear
A
as
lot of
well.
streamers use it.
Wait, what are the
Rising
flames on the
Sun?
CHT
It's
pendants
either
Yeah,
again?
it's
Rising
like a
Sun or it's a
crafting.
different one, but I'm not sure exactly
Dude,
which one.
Rising Sun was relevant when we had PvP, man.
Yeah.
Oh my god. What
It's
is
one
it,
of the craftable
2008?
pendants, and then Dominator Pendant is current pendant best in slot before Hilla, I
Okay.
think.
But that
Yeah.
that would change up their like best in slot, their meta hardcore if they got Galax.
Yeah, I think the Hilla pendants prevent it. They really like that hard boss set.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Like they wanna like if they introduced Golex to KMS, there would not be much incentive to do Hilla, which is
Guys.
kind of counterintuitive to what they're trying to do. I feel.
I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make the big boss set relevant.
Hmm.
And what is standing in the way of that? That's high Star Force Sweetwater stuff. That's Galax stuff. Oh no.
I think they'll
The,
nerf
with the badge
Sweetwater.
removal logic in mind, do you
Mhm.
think they'll actually remove Galax? Because they're removing badges possibly because of the Black Mage dropping it.
Yeah.
So, because Hilla's coming out, do you think that her pendant will make Galax be removed? It may not be a question that anyone wants to
I don't-
answer, but
I don't
I think that is
so.
I think
It's
that's a much.
a very
tougher-
scary possibility, but I don't think it will happen.
I think the difference between like something like a badge, which is just one slot, versus Galax, which is like an entire set,
Mhm.
and there's obviously like the varying tiers and all that kind
Like,
of thing.
You have like
It's
3
such
best in
a
slot rings that are
bigger
from Golex.
decision.
You have your 2 pendants, your belt, and in some cases earring. Yeah, I don't think they're gonna remove all that. That's too much.
I think they
Too
kind of
big.
future-proofed it as well, where they consciously made the flames for Galax and Sweetwater gear shitty, so that the content could stay in the game and they wouldn't have to remove it later.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's why they did it. So that yeah, because if they gave those items also good flames, then we would definitely be a lot stronger than KMS, right? So now we can choose either we get the Golix set and we get shitty flames, or we get good flames but we get shitty items, basically.
But I mean, people.
Then
I mean,
have
if we go,
transposing.
if we
I
go
can see
absolute,
transposing to be completely removed.
I really want transposing to be removed. I think it's quite a poorly designed system as a whole.
They can't do it now though. People have already transposed.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is they've already done so much. It's hard to then strip it back.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But
This
the
is really
thing about
random, by the
Golix-
way.
Go for it.
Oh, sorry, carry on. Go ahead.
And I was gonna say the thing that about Golix and Flames is, do you not think that endgame players will eventually just throw flames and flames until they get something that is somewhat good?
I don't know. What's the highest level you can get? Like tier 4, right?
It's like the last thing you do.
Yeah.
It's
there's
very
so many
minimal
things
games
you can
for
do before
optimizing
then,
flames
yeah.
on non-KMS items. Because you go, like, right now, like, people usually settle for, like, maybe flat 30 stat. That's it.
Yeah.
And then, like, if you optimize for, like, plus 40, then it's, like, there's a lot of meso invested. What is Sam doing?
Mm.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Whoa.
my Kana dead again.
It's kind of so dead right now. You can see it.
What was I saying?
have no idea.
Flames on goal. Yeah, I think that's, like, one of the last things you do.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's such a a minimal game, but I can see people doing it eventually.
I would Star Force gear on my mules to make more Legion coins before I max my flames on my Golix gear.
I agree.
Mm.
So I would Star Force my drop rate set, even though I already one shot before I flame my boss. The rate of return is so horrible. I tried to flame a Sengoku weapon once just to get some extra weapon attack, and I dropped 600 mil and I didn't get weapon attack one time.
Yeah,
And
that's
I'm
bad.
so done with that system.
Very bad.
Yeah.
All right. We're creeping up in an hour. There is a 24-hour 2x drop event in Reboot that is starting at reset, so in like 50 or so minutes. So
Wait, really?
probably yes.
Oh,
You didn't know?
wait, you're joking.
No, I knew. I 100% knew, dude.
Anyway, so we're probably going to call it there. I just want to thank all of you for joining us. Thanks for taking the time out of your day. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching the second Maple Streamer podcast. Go check out all of the featured streamers in the description below. I left a link to all of their socials. Go drop a follow. As I said at the very start of the podcast, this one was pretty rushed when it came to organizing. It was very last minute. So big shout out to all of the streamers that made it. Oh, and big shout out to my boy NoGoodDavis, my editor. He put together this amazing overlay. It looks wonderful. I love it. I did realize that both the first podcast and this one have been very Reboot focused. So I was thinking for the third one, we could focus more about non-Reboot servers. So a bunch of non-Reboot streamers in a call for the next one. Alright, I think that's it for this video. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!